Lemons and lemonade, am I right? You know, you know the one. Or the omelets and egg quote from Fight Club. You've heard of that one too, am I right? Have you ever had one of those moments where you stop, you look around, and you quietly ask yourself, how in the fuck did I end up here? Really? And not in some necessarily dramatic movie scene kind of way. No slow motion special effects or explosions, no cinematic orchestral soundtrack playing in the background. No, just you sitting in a silence, looking at what remains. A relationship that ended, a career that disappeared, a dream that quietly died, a version of yourself that no longer exists. But it's time to change the cat litter, though. Sometimes life doesn't gently close one chapter before opening another. Sometimes life grabs the entire bookshelf and throws it down the stairs, lights it on fire, and then whispers, well, this should be interesting. If that's where you are today, then I say welcome. And not because suffering and hardship is something to celebrate, but because you're in good company. Every meaningful life eventually passes through ruins and wreckage. The question isn't whether we'll face them. The question is, where do we start and what do we build next? I think it's fascinating that human beings travel thousands of miles just to stand in the presence of ruins. Ancient castles, weathered cathedrals, forgotten civilizations. We stand there in awe. We don't see failure, we see history. We see endurance. We see mystery. We see beauty. But when we're standing in the ruins of our own lives, we suddenly become our own worst, harshest critics. We don't say, this is part of my story. We say, I am my failure. I am a mistake. I am a fuck up. Those are two very different things. Your life may contain detours, mishaps, and mistakes, but that doesn't mean you are a failure. Those ruins are evidence that you have lived, that you loved, that you risked something, that you put yourself out there, that you dared enough to lose. Yeah, that's painful, but it's also profoundly human. Here's something I've come to believe. Spirit isn't obsessed with keeping us comfortable. Spirit seems far more interested in making us awake. An awakening is rarely on our schedule and convenient. We like to imagine transformation arriving with soft music, scented candles, chocolates, and inspirational quotes printed in elegant cursive. Instead, it often shows up looking suspiciously like everything has fallen apart all at once, and chaotic frenzy ensues. Sometimes life dismantles what our ego desperately wanted to protect. And not because we're being punished, but because we've mistaken survival and success for living. Sometimes the identities that we've spent years constructing simply can't carry us where we're meant to go. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes life wrecks us, and other times we wreck ourselves. And frankly, I've done both. Maybe you have too. Sometimes we make terrible decisions, have one too many, we stay too long. Sometimes we leave too early. Sometimes we trust the wrong people. Sometimes we become the wrong person. Sometimes we're simply exhausted and trying to make the best decision we can while emotionally running on empty. The beautiful thing about wisdom isn't that it prevents mistakes, though. Wisdom often grows because of and in spite of mistakes. Experience is an expensive teacher. Its tuition is usually paid in regret, though. And can we laugh about something for a moment? Isn't it amazing how confident we can be while making absolutely terrible choices and decisions? You ever look back at your younger self and think, what exactly was the plan there? What exactly was I thinking? I had the confidence of someone who absolutely did not know what they were doing. Yeah, I've been there. Sometimes I wish life came with a director's commentary, though. Imagine hearing a narrator say, at this exact moment, Joseph believes this is an excellent idea. It is not. He will discuss this in therapy or on YouTube several years later. Being human is wonderfully ridiculous, and thank goodness we can laugh about it. Because humor doesn't erase suffering, it simply reminds suffering that it doesn't get the last word, and it certainly doesn't get the last laugh. One of the greatest lies we tell ourselves after failure is this: I have to rebuild everything immediately. New career, new relationships, perfect finances, perfect body, perfect morning routine. I'm going to wake up every morning at 4:30 a.m. and meditate, journal, run 5 miles, read philosophy, learn Mandarin, become emotionally secure by Thursday. Slow down. You're trying to build the roof before you pour the foundation, though. Nobody builds a cathedral overnight. Brick after brick after brick. Your life is no different. Healing isn't dramatic most days. It's surprisingly ordinary. It's drinking water instead of another excuse. It's making one phone call you've been avoiding. It's going to bed a little bit earlier. It's apologizing. It's forgiving. It's taking a walk. It's applying for one job instead of imagining 100. Small actions repeatedly and consistently become extraordinary lives. Nature understands this better than we do. After a forest fire, the landscape appears dead. Black earth, burned trees, silence. You would think life has left, but beneath the ashes is something incredible happening. Certain seeds only open after intense heat. The fire wasn't the end of their story, it was the beginning. Maybe your life feels burned down right now. Maybe everything familiar has disappeared. Maybe your fire isn't proof that you're finished. Maybe it's creating conditions for something that couldn't have emerged any other way. Spiritually speaking, I don't believe rebuilding starts with fixing yourself. I think rebuilding starts with making peace with yourself. That's different. We become a culture obsessed with self improvement. Everywhere you look, someone is trying to optimize your life, your sleep, your productivity, optimize your breakfast, optimize your breathing. I'm surprised nobody hasn't tried optimizing blinking, though. Sometimes what your soul needs isn't optimization, it's compassion. Your spirit isn't a broken machine, it's a living mystery. Treat it accordingly. One of the hardest things to accept is that grief doesn't only come from death. We grieve lost futures, lost identities, lost marriages, lost careers, lost innocence, lost certainty. Sometimes what hurts most isn't what happened, it's realizing the life you imagine will never happen. That deserves mourning. Give yourself permission to grieve. Healing isn't about pretending that everything's okay. Healing is allowing truth to breathe. People often ask, why did this happen? Sometimes there are answers, sometimes there are not. Personally, I've found a better question though. What is this asking of me? Notice the difference. The first question keeps you looking backward. The second begins pointing you forward. Maybe this season is asking you to become more patient, more courageous, more honest, more humble, more forgiving, more alive. Here's another lesson. Protect your construction site. If you're rebuilding your life, not everyone deserves unlimited access. Would you invite random strangers to walk through a house that's still being built? Of course not. Some people only know how to criticize unfinished things. They'll point at missing walls while ignoring the foundation. And don't confuse criticism with wisdom. Build quietly if you have to. Let the results speak later. One brick I think people overlook is service. When your life feels shattered, help someone. Help someone else. And not because you're ignoring pain, but because suffering has a way of shrinking our worlds. Serving another person gently reminds us that we're still capable of bringing light into someone else's darkness. Sometimes purpose returns before happiness does. Follow purpose. Joy often catches up later. And please, celebrate ridiculously small victories, those small W's. Got out of bed? Victory. Made your appointment? W. Cooking dinner instead of eating cereal for the third day in a row? W. Massive victory, right? Didn't send that angry text that you spent 20 minutes typing out? Heroic restraint. Progress doesn't always feel impressive or over the top. Sometimes it almost feels invisible. But invisible progress is still progress. There's an old idea that sacred spaces are places without cracks. Well, I disagree. I think the sacred often enters through the cracks. A broken heart is still a heart. A wounded spirit is still capable of loving. Sometimes more deeply than before, even. The cracks aren't always weaknesses. Sometimes they're windows. If I could leave you with one image today, it would be this. Imagine a stonemason standing before a pile of broken rocks. Most people see rubble. The mason sees possibility. He turns each stone, studies its shape, finds exactly where it belongs. Nothing is wasted. Not the chipped edges, not the strange angles. Everything has purpose. Maybe spirit is something like that. Maybe your disappointments, your failures, your heartbreaks, your regrets aren't being thrown away. Maybe they're becoming part of the architecture of the person you're still becoming. So if you're standing in the middle of your own ruins today, don't panic because you can't see the finished building. Nobody standing on a foundation can. Your only responsibility today is the next brick. Not the whole wall, not the entire house, just the next brick. One honest conversation, one healthy meal, one act of forgiveness, one prayer, one page in a journal, one application, one deep breath, one choice that says, I haven't given up. Because every meaningful life, every beautiful piece of artwork, every extraordinary comeback was built exactly the same way. One brick, one day, one faithful step at a time. Maybe your story didn't unfold the way that you had hoped. Maybe life humbled you. Maybe your own decisions humbled you. Welcome to being human. You're not disqualified because you've fallen. You're being invited to rise differently, wiser, kinder, less concerned with appearances, more concerned with authenticity. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs people who know how to rebuild. People who have looked suffering in the eye and decided to become compassionate instead of bitter. People who understand that strength isn't pretending you've never been broken. Strength is becoming someone beautiful because you did. So wherever you are today, whether you're standing in ashes, walking through it, times of uncertainty, or quietly laying your very first brick, know this: you are not behind, you are not ruined, you are not finished. Your ruins are not the end of your story. They are simply the place where your next chapter begins. Thank you for spending this time with me as I close for today. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might be on their journey of rebuilding their life. Leave a comment telling me what brick you're laying this week. I'd love to hear your story. And until next time, take care of your spirit, honor your journey, and remember, even the strongest houses and cathedrals began with a single stone. Keep building. This is Mr. Fox, Sacred Fox Consulting. We'll see you next time.